That's right. This is Arsenal Review USA. You can find us at arsenalreviewusa.com. You know us. We're with bigdiag.com or with Arsenal America. None of that stuff is important right now because we finally beaten Man U, and that's something I think we can all, band together about. We can all get happy about. Certainly on a weekend where everyone else is losing seemingly in the
Yeah.
top four. So things are looking good now for Arsenal. Maybe not so much a few days ago, losing to Rennes 3-1. But, I'm Kyle. I'm willing to put that out of my memory if you are too. I mean, I guess we could discuss the Rennes game, but yeah. Why would you want to
Did we
dwell on
finally
something?
determine how it's pronounced? Did you?
No. I mean, that's neither here nor there. We might not be pronouncing it that. Either way, we're not going to be pronouncing it that much longer.
Yeah,
Uh,
probably. Yeah, right. Whether we
so
lose or win the match coming up at the Emirates. Yeah, obviously worrying between the two fixtures that we just experienced in the Premier League. Tottenham, a game we should have won. Manchester United, maybe a game. They had their chance more so than Tottenham. I think they has their chances hitting the post a
was
couple
it a
times.
lucky game for Arsenal? Because I was gonna try to sit back and kind of withhold for a while asking you that question, but you seem to allude to it immediately. So I'll just ask you it right now. Was it a lucky game for Arsenal?
Well,
On the one hand, things did go Arsenal's way in very, very key instances. On the other hand, they are unbeaten at home since forever. So there's that.
since
Although
the City game,
I want to
right?
say, yeah, I want to say
Yeah,
that
so they're unbeaten at home in the
November,
league.
right? Which is like
Well, the City game was one of the two in the start of the season was at home, Chelsea or City.
Oh,
Which
maybe
one
it's
was
longer
it?
than that. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's
So
been a long time, okay?
yeah, just the one loss at home, I think, for Arsenal.
Yeah.
Either way, yeah, I think there's a little bit of luck, but anytime you organize yourself in a way that Arsenal did or Unai Emery did against Manchester United, you're going to have a little bit of luck, and I think luck is on any team's side when you go up against a fairly potent offensive team. And Man United have had their struggles, but they've certainly been good under Solskjaer since he's arrived at the club. His first loss since taking the helmet as caretaker manager at United, and you have to remember only the 2-2 draw earlier on in the season at Old Trafford felt like a loss. It felt like Arsenal really should have won that game, maybe more so than this game, the way that they did. But only Arsenal's fifth win against Manchester United in the league since 2008. So you're talking about over a decade time frame. 22 matches or so. So out of those 22 matches, since we've now played them twice, I guess that would be about 11 seasons. 22 matches in the league, only won 5 times during that stretch. So this is a rare occurrence for Arsenal against Manchester United in recent memory, actually extended recent memory. I don't know what recent memory, what the time frame is for you being able to say recent memory, but regardless, Arsenal don't beat Manchester United all that
internet,
often.
basically.
Yeah, so I think anytime you say, was it a little bit lucky? Sure. I'll take a little bit lucky and a clean sheet and a performance like we saw from Leno and various other players on the pitch any day of the week, especially now that it sees us 1 point out of third place with Tottenham. I think a much tougher road to down the stretch here. Although Arsenal have to go away from home in several matches leading up to May and that final match day of the season. Actually, we don't have to go through it now, but I actually have a breakdown of how I think the games are going to go. And we should see Arsenal hopefully finish about 3 points above Tottenham when all's said and done.
Yeah, or more. More would be great.
Yeah,
but
great.
So often on this show and on other Arsenal podcasts and other publications, whatever you want to call them, you hear people asking, where did it all go wrong for Arsenal? Well, where did it all go right for Arsenal against Man U? We alluded to a couple things there, and hopefully luck isn't the main one, but it's the classic cliche that you make your own luck. And I think that was very much the case for Arsenal overall in all areas against Man U. They kind of continued what they did against Tottenham, just the way they played, the effort they put forth, the smothering, let's say smothering defense, because we'll talk about defense in a second, but smothering play from a lot of players on the pitch. They gave a really great effort. I don't think Xhaka, maybe somewhat controversial here, but I think he got the benefit of like the goal scorers,
Goal scorer was high.
retro. Well, yeah, no, like retroactive review from viewers saying he had a good game because he scored a goal, and he did have that really good tackle. I
Yeah.
forgot if it was the first or second half, but uh, other than that, I was really concerned throughout the game about both his and Ramsey's positioning. It seemed, especially in the second half, that Pogba was constantly behind them, which is like, hey guys, you're the midfield. Like, there's no one else behind you. Then it's defense. You don't want someone sitting, a midfielder on their team, sitting in behind you. So whenever he picked up the ball, they're already chasing him like every time. So that was concerning to me. But I think their effort, that was just one of the areas where an Arsenal player's effort really made up for, and in a lot of cases, uh, more than made up for a lack of positioning, a lack of skill, a lack of mental awareness in certain areas. So I think across the board there was just a lot more effort. I hate saying effort, saved
Yeah.
the game for anyone, but you know what I mean. There was a lot more application and determination from the Arsenal side across the board. Maitland-Niles is another great example of that, who did not have a good first half, but in the second half, he really came on and he grew into the game.
Yeah.
So I think that's, there's more to it than that, but that's certainly the big thing that went Arsenal's way. Lukaku also went Arsenal's way a lot. I mean, Lukaku,
Yeah.
I don't, does anyone know how to describe Lukaku? Like, he's not a bad player, but he can be terrible. And against Arsenal, he was terrible, very terrible.
Yeah. Well, and
Which
I'm fine with that. And yeah, I mean, a couple observations really, I think overall, other than, deciding whether it was luck or pointing out a particular player, which I think, top to bottom, every player on the Arsenal pitch either did something really, really good, like scoring a goal or making a great tackle.
Ozil. What do you think about Ozil? Well,
You know
what
what?
did he do well?
I think, okay, so I was going to get to the point with like the lack of defensive midfield or like defending in our kind of third of the pitch. Hold on. Yeah, hold on. I'm going to bring Ozil up in this.
Okay.
I think Arsenal benefited and maybe got a little bit of lucky because Manchester United did not counterattack as well as maybe they could have. Think about how many players they had going forward. Arsenal did.
Oh yeah,
Kolasinac, Ramsey, Xhaka, Ozil, the two forwards. Obviously, Maitland-Niles getting up in the attack. And I think part of the reason we were able to do that, a big part of the reason, is that you have such a great pairing now between Koscielny and Sokratis, who I just, I wish Koscielny was 10 years younger and Sokratis was 5 years younger, because that partnership, I think, between the two of them, Sokratis, the big burly, enforcer, Koscielny, the great recoverer, the great one-on-one defender, would be a fantastic middle center back pairing for years to come. Probably not going to see it for too much longer here, depending on how Koscielny holds up. But because I thought the back four were so solid, Monreal and Kolasinac, love them on the same side of the pitch. I think they complement each other really well. Kolasinac can defend, but obviously with Monreal behind him allows him to get forward that much more. So Arsenal in general, from just about everyone playing in the midfield, they purposely were driving forward. We were intercepting a lot of balls and winning back possession in the middle of the pitch or in Manchester United's, defensive half of the field. And we weren't having to, yes, we let Manchester United get into the box several times and we let some build-up play happen. But very rarely did we get countered to the effect where Xhaka and Ramsey are just like, busting the gut to try to get back. Yeah. And we kind of like, we wipe our brow and say, we lucked out on that one. I think the pressing and the players being up the pitch in that regard, we got away with it. Maybe got a little lucky, if you want to put it that way, in terms of winning a lot of possession back. So I think, yes, I would agree with you and maybe many others that Ozil was a bit pedestrian in the match, didn't necessarily provide the sharpness and the creativity that you would like to see from him, especially with Aubameyang and Lacazette playing together. Mm-hmm. However, I do think he, at least in the first half, I thought he was putting in the extra effort to like get forward every time Arsenal won the ball back. Like I felt like he was getting forward, getting that extra body, causing problems where at least Manchester United had to be thinking about, where is Ozil going to be? Is he going to get the ball in this space and then create something onward? So if anything else, he was kind of a distraction, a good distraction, because players and teams know what he's capable of, even though maybe what he was trying to do or what he potentially was playing the game for, didn't necessarily come off.
Yeah.
And in this case, 2-0 win. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt of, maybe the team picked him up a little bit and maybe made him look a little bit better than he was. But overall, not as bad as we've seen in the past. Let's be honest.
Yeah, well, to be fair to the Arsenal team, and I'm throwing people under the bus too early here. Guys like Xhaka and Ramsey, kind of playing catch up all the time on Man U, or it seemed like playing catch up all the time on Man U's midfield. Guys like Pogba always getting in behind them. Like, to be fair to them, they didn't set the starting lineup. The starting lineup was nuts from an offensive standpoint because you had Lacazette, you had Aubameyang, you had Ozil, you had Ramsey. Kolasinac was also in there. There's always talk about Kolasinac not getting back on defense. Obviously, you had Monreal behind him, but you had all these guys in there. Xhaka, even himself, he's not like a holding midfielder. He's more of like the quarterback to offense, So you had a very offensively minded lineup in there, and the gamble paid off. It definitely was a gamble. You could see that at times with Man U hitting the post twice. It definitely was a gamble. And it definitely paid off for Arsenal. So I think in retrospect, I mean, you're not going to pick any negatives over that starting lineup, but it certainly was one that was top heavy, to say the least. Now, in the end or throughout the game, I think the defense, like I alluded to, kind of grew into it, kind of dialed in the defense and kind of tightened around Man U's offense. But it did really hinge on some, again, moments of luck or stupidity from Man U players, or I don't know what you want to call it, but Arsenal did ask a lot of questions, and finally they were answered. And the first one was with the Xhaka goal, which is just I still don't know what to think about it. I can't remember a goal I've watched more than the Xhaka goal against Man U, which is crazy because it's not a great goal. Like you'd be like, there's a million goals you should watch more than that goal. But I just can't figure out how it managed to go in from 30 yards and land basically in the center of the goal. Like, that's where it landed. Maybe a little bit left center. I still can't understand what De Gea was doing. I could only assume that he was cheating, and he was. When you look at the replays, he was cheating in the direction that he thought he was going to have to go. He thought he was going to have to go all the way to his left to stop a screamer.
Mm-hmm.
And he just committed so early and so much to that direction that when it knuckled the other way, he was basically helpless at that point. But I mean, I feel for him because I know that if it was Leno, Arsenal fans would be furious with Leno, like, oh, there's his weakness again. What is he doing? He's not reacting properly, or he's not paying attention. He's not focused properly, but really, like, when you watch the only way I could describe the physics of that ball is like, those balls that they have at Walmart in like the big cages.
Yeah.
They're like that big.
Yeah.
Like, if you just kick the crap out of that, like purely right in the middle, it's going to knuckle like 5 different ways, as it moves through the air. That's the only way I could describe the physics of what is now the standard issue.
It was like the 2010 World Cup ball.
Oh, the jump, was it the Jubilee?
Jubilee. It's not Jambalaya. Yeah.
It's like, we gotta look this up, but it's like the Jabulani or something stupid, something that they're trying to like nod towards the locale of South Africa. I mean, they're probably all offended by it. But it was terrible. It was everyone agreed.
Yeah.
It was terrible in many ways. But anyway, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that goal, but
no, I think De Gea, obviously a track record, a good one at that. Yeah, really, he's the one that kept us Arsenal from winning the 2-2. Several saves in that match that kept.
It is the Jabulani. Just
Jabulani. There you go. Yeah,
if you want to incorporate that into your discussion now, it's Jabulani. Yeah.
Well, I think we all feel a bit of Jabulani when it comes to our keeper in Bernd Leno. If you can feel that, I don't know if that's a feeling or not. Regardless,
we just described it was kind of like an unpredictable, maybe bad thing. So I don't know if you want to feel that necessarily, but maybe in a good way, you could feel like the good side of the Jabulani.
Yeah,
Filter
and
forth.
that perhaps our podcast and others like it talk too often about the goalkeeper situation of the past 20 years, maybe, or since the
Yeah,
Invincibles. I don't
yeah,
know.
about yeah. Since
Probably since
David Seaman, or since Lehman left,
yeah, since Jens Lehmann left, it's just been a point of contention within the squad. Do we have a true first team keeper? And I think, you know, can we definitively say that Bernd Leno is going to be the next Arsenal first team keeper and put in performances like we saw against Man United time and time again after, 5/6 or, I guess 30 games he's played.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't start, I guess, the first 5 to 10 matches of the
Right.
Premier League season, but for all intents and purposes, he's Arsenal's number one. And I can honestly say I'm pretty confident he still makes some kind of bonehead decisions when it comes to, corner kicks are coming out
Right.
or not coming out and those sorts of things. But he's a great shot stopper. I thought the stat of him coming out of the Bundesliga was an interesting one because he had like the worst save percentage or something of starting goalkeepers last year in the Bundesliga. It was like, maybe it wasn't the worst, but it was pretty far down the list.
Yeah.
And that could be just because he was facing a lot of shots and his defense was terrible. I know nothing about was it Leverkusen where he came from. So regardless, I think, seeing a performance like that and knowing that your keeper allowed you to secure the points, especially given, some of the breakdowns that led to those chances and so forth. I mean, that's what you need to see. I mean, you need a complete team effort to win those sorts of games, even when you're playing at the Emirates. And, I think we got that. And most importantly, it is that high profile position. When you make a mistake like De Gea did, you're going to get crucified for it. But when you play a match like Leno did on the flip side and make fantastic saves and keep that clean sheet, it was a well-earned clean sheet. So I mean, Petr Cech, hats off to him, Hall of Fame career.
Mm-hmm.
But he had the benefit of keeping however many clean sheets he did, when he was with Chelsea, because he didn't have to do anything.
It's a much more collective effort.
Yeah, he is not making 5, 6, 7 key saves a game to keep that clean sheet. Whereas, Leno, the clean sheets that we've kept recently, he's really had to work for him, and it's been a true clean sheet for someone like him. And so I don't think you can say enough about what he's brought to the side, a little bit of confidence. And, as I mentioned earlier, the partnership between Colcioni and Socrates and, Maitland-Niles maybe being I don't think he's going to necessarily take Bellerin's spot, but I thought he looked really good back there. Monreal looking strong, getting older, of course. So we certainly have some defensive issues, of course. We all know this, to figure out. But I do think that we found, hopefully, what will be our first team keeper for the next, 5 to 8 seasons.
Yeah, and we've got the return of the penalty taker too, because he like a quarterback, a true American football quarterback, just went up there and forgot completely about his last big mistake in that exact same situation. Just did the exact same thing, and it worked somehow. It worked. A lot has been made about the fact that so apparently I don't know if you saw the interview afterwards, but he said his mistake in the Tottenham game is that he took his eyes off Lloris at the crucial second, and that's why he just basically hit it right where Lloris was gonna go or gonna react. If you notice in this game, he just doesn't
look at the ball at all
at De Gea the entire time, which is almost equally unnerving. But I guess if you grow up with a football at your feet every day, every second, you just know where it is, and know how to kick it without
not moving, hopefully, right?
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, it was terrifying watching that penalty. But it turned out okay. And given De Gea's day, earlier for the first half, I didn't expect him to save it. But at the same time, you just wonder what's going to happen. So great to see him brush that off. Obviously, great to get a second goal in a game where you always fancied, man, you might get one or something bad might happen. Arsenal might slip up and let him back in. But great to see him get back on. Great to see him get back to scoring ways, because he hasn't been in the best of form recently, and also great to see all the teammates. I did wonder when Lacazette won the penalty, which we could talk about also, if he'd take it, if there'd be some kind of like inquest, or some kind of like huddle to figure out which Arsenal player would take it. But apparently Aubameyang's the man, no matter what. It was nice to see Lacazette, pump him up,
Right. Well, and
not try to take the ball from him. So
you could see him pretty quickly after he got up once the penalty was called, Lacazette, that is, and motion or kind of mouth. I mean, it looked like, lip reading to us, bad lip reading. But he basically said Abba or something, like kind of pointing to the spot, like he knew, if you won a penalty, regardless of
the band. It's time to play the best hits. Abba's best hits. No.
Sure.
Leaving me hanging. Tough crowd. All right.
Well, no, like regardless of, if Arsenal got any sort of penalty, that Aubameyang, if he was on the pitch, was going to take it. That was the point I was going to make there. Yeah.
Get some references, but no.
So, real quickly before we move on, I want to highlight the importance of this particular match because I'll show you the breakdown here.
I didn't think it was that important, but hopefully you can convince me with that. Okay.
Yeah.
You got me.
So, we discussed this on one of our previous podcasts that Spurs have quite the difficult fixture list remaining here, and I guess there's 7 matches right for each team. So so 7 for Arsenal, 7 for Tottenham as well. 31 matches played for each team. Mm-hmm. Tottenham on 61 points, Arsenal on 60. Okay, so I did a breakdown. You can agree or disagree with me, and we'd love to hear from anyone out there listening now or watching this or listening to this when we post it as a audio based podcast. What your thoughts are. So Arsenal play Newcastle at home, Everton away, Watford away, Crystal Palace at home, Leicester away, Brighton at home, and Burnley away to finish the season yet again, just like last year.
Right.
Okay, so or not Burnley, that was Huddersfield Town. They played Burnley in Wenger's last game. That's why I was thinking. And so for me, I have 3 points against Newcastle, a draw against Everton, 3-3 against Watford and Crystal Palace. Watford's always tough, but I think we'll get it done. A draw against Leicester, and winning both against Brighton and away to Burnley. So that gives us 17 points out of 21 for a total of 77 points on the season. So 17 plus 60, 77. All right, Spurs have to go to Liverpool on the Sunday we get back from the break. They host Brighton and host Huddersfield Town. Then they go to City. Then they host West Ham. Then they go to Bournemouth. And then they host Everton. So for me, I think they lose to Liverpool away. I think they beat Brighton and they beat Huddersfield Town. I think they lose to City away. I think they beat West Ham, although that could be a tricky one for them. I think they beat Bournemouth, and I think they draw against Everton at home. All right, so that gives them 13 out of 21 points for a total of 74. So that has Arsenal seeing them overtaking them into third place by 3 points. And even if they won against Everton, that would still only put them on 76. So very much the point is, I think if Tottenham lose to Liverpool and City, both of which are away for them, which is very likely, Arsenal have this, I don't want to call it a trophy or whatever, this goal in mind of now finishing above Tottenham. St. Tottenham's Day is back, all the hoopla around that sort of thing. Finishing third, I think, in Unai Emery's first season, given the way we started 2019, would be a fantastic, run of form, a fantastic way to end the season.
Sure.
And I think it's firmly in Arsenal's control based on the schedule that they have out in front of them, of course. And then, Tottenham's going to have some Champions League matches as well mixed into there, where it could cause them to stumble in some of the matches that, you would assume that they're going to get 3 points. So in my mind, based on what I see, I think Arsenal will overtake Tottenham to finish above them in third place. And Liverpool and City are going to battle it out at the top. likely City will go on to win the league. But as I just said, I think third place, with a decent run in the Europa League, if we can't get the business done, hopefully we continue on in that competition as well. But third place in Unai Emery's first season, I think would be a pretty darn good result.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think someone was saying earlier that, or pointed out earlier that at this time last season, Arsenal had something like 48 points, and what do we have now? It was like 60?
60, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a bit of a swing. Obviously, it's all relative, and as teams around you get better, you need to get better. So, um, it's still a scrap and a fight for Arsenal at this stage, in a very competitive Premier League. But yeah, 12 points better than what we had at this point last season. That's pretty good. That does show improvement, given that Arsenal has, or Unai Emery has, basically the exact same squad that Arsene Wenger left him. So yes, I think that
Yeah, you look at it this way: Arsenal are at 18, 6, and 6. So they've gone 18, 6, and 4 since losing the first 2 matches of the Premier League season. So I mean, I would have to think that's probably best, if not close to best in the Premier League,
right?
Because even a team like City, they have 4 losses on the season. Really comes down to, when you look at the table, the amount of draws that the teams have, because, like we mentioned, when we drew Tottenham, that's their first draw of the season. Right. They have 20 wins, 1 draw against us, and 9 losses. So, even the team above us in Tottenham, they have 3 more losses than Arsenal. So it's not typically the losses that set the teams apart. It's whether or not you can go on and win a game late, that you're drawn, or
Sure.
Something like the Manchester United game away, where we should have probably gone on and won that game. Those sorts of things, I think, come back to haunt you more so than the handful of losses that a team like Arsenal are going to have. But all that said, I think if any Arsenal fan, I mean, our expectations are always maybe wildly out of proportion, whether we have a new manager or someone that's been there for 22 seasons. But I think if
collectively Arsenal fans, because ours aren't usually.
Collectively, on the average, if you take the mean, whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
If someone were to say Unai Emery will do X in the Europa League, to be determined there, of course, but he will finish above Tottenham and in the top 4 in his first season. I can't imagine you to find an Arsenal fan on the face of the earth that wouldn't take that.
Right.
If they were asked that or offered that in August.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
sure. No, that makes sense. It's especially just going back to this game. In this game, or these last 2 games, if you would have told someone, we get 4 points after playing Tottenham at Tottenham or at Wembley, and playing Man U, a resurgent Man U at home, that's something I think they would have taken too, or at least I would have taken that. I definitely saw or could see a loss in those 2 games. Luckily, that didn't happen. We narrowly drew one, like as in we should have won it, and then we beat Man U crucially on a weekend where everybody else pretty much dropped points. So, it's a great week for Arsenal, obviously, and it's a great time to have it also because we've got the international break after this now. Well, we got Rennes in midweek, but after that, we've got a break of some sort. I'm assuming it's a stupid international break. I just know there's a big break.
We don't play Newcastle until April 1st, which is a Monday.
Yeah. So April Fool's Day, which not a good day to play Newcastle historically. We've got plenty of April Fools against
actually, and several Monday matches, which will be really interesting. So 3 Monday matches in the month of April against Newcastle, Watford, and Leicester.
Yeah.
And then just 1 Sunday and 1 Saturday match.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we've played on Monday in the league yet. So hopefully that evening is kind to us.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay, so before we talk to people again, it's probably just going to be Rennes. I mean, I don't know if we want to look ahead to all the way to Newcastle. But okay, hold on. We've got Rennes predictions here, right? You got Rennes predictions. I've got Rennes predictions. Everyone's got Rennes predictions.
Yeah, we had both really, really wrong. 2-1 wins against, and then we said we both said 3-2 against Man United. So good job, +1 for both of us. And then I had 2-0 for the follow-up leg, which I guess would see us through, right? And then
Right,
You
2-1,
have 2-1.
which is not going to cut it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
you have to stick with that. So let's go ahead and do Newcastle just in
all
case.
right. Okay, so why don't you go ahead for Newcastle?
Newcastle at home, that'll be 3-1.
Kyle says 3-1 win. I'm gonna say, I mean, Newcastle's flying high, but I'm 2-0. Yeah, 2-0. 2-0. I think they're going to be stingy. I mean, they are stingy. I against big teams, they tend to be a little stingier. But yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. As long as they don't get any offside goals, I think we should be fine with that scoreline. But yeah, just crazy week. I mean, I know obviously we're here to talk about Arsenal, but a crazy week in the Premier League in general. Yet even more terrible decisions being made. I'm thinking about the Man City game and their goal. Yeah, and the goal that was deflected off somebody else and went in their favor, and then just obviously all the pitch invasions that went on, things like that. It's yeah, it's kind of a weird time in the Premier League where I think a lot of different a lot of new things, a lot of old things are kind of converging, and they're trying to figure out how to adapt to the times. Things like keeping players or keeping fans off the pitch, and more practical things like just how to referee a game properly, which we talked about last week, which is something that's kind of like you get the sense it's just kind of beyond most most Premier League refs. It was funny. I think someone mentioned we had John Moss, right? John Moss.
Correct.
The fat guy. Not fat.
A lot of them are fat.
He's not fat. Right, right. There's that also, but someone actually made it was on some Englishman was commenting about the fact that on one of their broadcasts, the broadcasters were actually mentioning that John Moss was like a little chubby, not the fittest of referees, which is like, it sounds mean, but I can't think of, a more I mean, what else are you going to say? This guy's supposed to be keeping track of all these fit guys, 22 of them running around. I mean, we talked about this last week, of course, but like running around, keeping up and being on top of, like being in the right position to keep tabs on these like stellar athletes. And you've got this little penguin like waddling around. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't think of a worse. I mean, I feel for him. I know I'm sounding like I'm being mean to him, but I feel for him because like he's got to do all that and actually look like he knows what he's doing, which he wouldn't, if that's the situation. I wouldn't want to be put in that situation as a relatively fit, like 34-year-old guy who can actually run back and forth. Let alone, I was actually, I'm going on a rabbit trail here, but I was actually looking up like the ages of all the referees. And yeah, the average age I would say is late 40s, early 50s. There's some, I want to say there was some, are there some in their 60s? Oh man, who was it? I can't think of who it was.
Well,
but the point is, it's crazy that anyone is tasked with this job of keeping track of like the world's best athletes, just one person. But then you look at English referees in general, and they're like probably around their 50, age 50, which is just ridiculous.
yeah.
For any sport,
and
besides baseball.
I'm sure you remember this, Joel, and others that are dedicated listeners to the podcast. I think it was earlier on in this season, maybe after must have been after a controversial match. I don't recall which one, or maybe it was late on last season, but I actually brought to the table all basically the pay of
right,
the different referees and the officials that you see throughout professional sports in the world. And, you can make a real career out of, working your way up through the ranks of, the different sports in the U.S., hockey, baseball, football, American football, and so forth. Yet you have English Premier League, one of the highest grossing leagues in the world, top ratings on all the networks, the best players, the best clubs, the most recognizable brands from a footballing soccer perspective that you would ever see. And those referees, some of them have other jobs because they don't pay them hardly anything. So I guess the question is, what 30-something referee who's an up and comer in the refereeing space wants to work their way up to become an EPL referee? Because one, the pay is crap compared to other, top refereeing or official positions in top professional leagues throughout the world. Two, you have this huge weight on your shoulders to get, to keep up with these players, to make the right calls, the sorts of decisions that these guys are making. They have a tough job. I mean, we give them we give them a hard time. We all do. That's just kind of part of it. Especially football referees probably get it more than anyone because there are so many calls to make. And if you don't become invisible, which, any good referee in any game, you don't know that they're there. We've talked about that before as well. But regardless, there is no motivation, at least from a financial standpoint, for anyone that is of younger age or aspiring referee. Basically, the point is there are no aspiring referees,
right.
For the English Premier League because there is no motivation in which to do.
There's not a lot of incentive. It seems like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I guess that's a bad way.
I mean, if they pay these guys, and they very well could because the money is there. If they paid these guys £250,000 a year, you would have the best of the best in the referees. But they don't. I think a center referee makes like £80,000 a year, 85, something like that. It's under £100,000 a year,
which is decent pay, but relatively speaking, not.
Yeah,
decent.
I mean, think about it. They are refereeing and having to deal with the chatter from guys that are making that in a week. Yeah. So, in one match day, the players that they're trying to babysit, essentially, in some cases, because so many of them are whiners about everything.
Yeah, I wonder,
who would want to put up with that when they know, Sergio Aguero is making 3 times. I just pick him out, but not that he's necessarily a whiner, but a player like him
doesn't speak English, so he can't be
a player like him is making 3 times the amount of the referee is in one match day.
Yeah. But yeah, sure. I always wonder, like, do English refs actually speak like multiple languages? I doubt it. Maybe un poquito español, but like that's about it. Okay, so guess who as far as I can tell, the oldest referee in the Premier League is? And guess, I know we're going off here.
How old is he?
Soon. Yeah, and if bonus points, who is he? How old is he? And bonus points, who is he?
53.
Oh, you're looking. I can see you're looking.
I'm looking at you.
Yeah, you're right. 53.
And
you probably won't know his name. I didn't even know his name. I recognize him, but I don't know his name.
I'm not sure.
He's no. No, Lee Probert is a strapping 47 years old. This is Roger East. I think he's a newer ref. He's 53, but he's a newer ref. He's tall, kind of gangly, bald. Yeah, he's the oldest one I can tell.
How old's Mike Dean?
He, I believe, is 50.
Basically, when is he going to die? So we can stop talking about him.
Oh, I know it's sad, but it's true.
50. Well, I wouldn't have thought that actually.
He's 50. Yeah. Guess how old Martin Atkinson is?
51.
Shoot, I just had Marty here. Where'd he go? Where'd the guy go? Okay, so I'm doing everyone a horrible injustice by not finding Martin Atkinson now, but he was like 46 or 47, which I thought that guy was like 60. The younger guys would be obviously little green behind the ears. Michael Oliver, Anthony Taylor's 40. There's just one other dude. I forgot his name. He's like 38. I mean, which is like, I don't know how I'd like it because obviously you need a little bit of experience, a little bit of, you need to be a little wise to be a referee, to have some poise. You don't want some young guy in there, losing his cool all the time and having an ego. But at the same time, you do need someone who's not fat.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Real quickly, we'll move topics here very, very quickly. We did have a contest that we presented to all of you on the last podcast. We wanted to know the last time Arsenal were awarded a penalty against Tottenham in the Premier League. You actually don't have to go back very far because Aubameyang scored the first goal of the 4-2 victory back in December of 2018. off of a penalty.
Right.
Before that, it probably was quite some time ago, but I didn't do the research. Neither did any of you, because all the answers that came in were correct in December of 2018. So you didn't have to go back very far, like I said. So congrats to Dom for taking home the stickers and the decal courtesy of us. So we'll get those out to you. We'll be getting in touch with you, Dom, to get you your prizes. So thanks to everyone that participated. Keep your eyes open for something on social media over the international break, or perhaps we'll we'll put another podcast or something short out after the Ren match. We'll see what happens. But, regardless, we'll give a few things away over the break leading up until the match against Newcastle.
Cool. Yep, that we will. All right, so I don't think much else to talk about on this podcast here. Obviously, the good news is that we followed up a very, very, very poor showing against Rennes with a very, very good showing against Man U. Sure, there were some instances where maybe we got lucky. Arsenal got lucky, but all in all, they fully deserved it. The way they played, the way they set up, it was very ambitious. It was not at all wimpy, not at all conservative for Unai Emery. So that is good to see that actually pay off. Good to see also Arsenal putting the pressure on Tottenham. So long may that continue. Well, long may that continue. We only got a few games left here, but hopefully that kind of result getting can continue for the final games of the season, because like Kyle pointed out, Tottenham don't have an easy run in, top 4 run in for the rest of the season. So we got Ren in midweek. You heard our predictions for that. Obviously, follow along with that game. I don't have to tell you that. That's important. Other than that, there's a bit of a break. So I guess sometime on the other side of the Newcastle game, we'll get in touch with you. Another podcast, another live show, something. But until then, as always, remember, support the Arsenal and have a good couple weeks.